So this should be an interesting dynamic tonight. What with, I don't know, math is hard. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Carry the
5. 5 panelists. This should be a hoot.
5 panelists.
It theoretically, it will be easier to keep Bailey quiet this way.
Yeah, well,
The odds you
We'll
can't.
see.
Yeah, that's math and statistics, right there.
Will there be no math?
You had to bring
Good
up
evening.
statistics.
Speaking of math, we have some friends in the UK, and they call it maths, plural.
Yeah.
And I hate that. And we've had debates back and forth.
I
I'm like,
say
no, you're
so.
wrong. You're wrong.
Yes,
You're wrong.
quiet.
It's called math.
Where's our resident Australian? I need to know.
right,
He's
mate.
not
Oh,
in the
he's
chat
here.
yet, but hopefully
He's not here.
Oh, he is. He is here.
He's at home.
Bo, is it math or maths in Australia? Singular or plural?
Hi, Bo.
Hi, everybody. This is the kind of craziness we do
Scintillating.
here on Sidebar. We talk about crazy things. Right now, it's math or maths, and at the end of the day, we agree to solve nothing.
It's a lot better than what we talked about the other night.
Yes, it is. Let's
That's
stick
why
with
we call it
this.
sidebar.
Yeah, that was a sidebar to the sidebar the other night. As Michael put
Sideberg.
it, a hard to starboard right into a bigger iceberg.
Yes.
So anyways, this should be a tamer topic tonight, jailhouse law, jailhouse lawyers. And we have Lindsay joining us, so it's a party of 5. Hi, Lindsay.
Hello. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we recruited Lindsay because we wasn't sure that Michael was going to be able to join us because Michael had stuff done today. And he slept until like 15 minutes ago. So
Yeah. So that's all the show prep I need.
there you go. That's a consummate professional right there.
That's right.
All right, so let's get into it. Jailhouse lawyers. So the concept here is you have prisoners helping prisoners when it comes to law. And there's a whole lot of history around it. There's a whole lot of stories. And there's a whole lot of law around jailhouse law, too. Some states are more okay with it than others. The Supreme Court has weighed in a couple of different areas. We saw a case in one of the, I don't remember if it was live or one of the videos we posted, but it was in Kentucky a few weeks back where the Judge Williams there, was actually going to hold that jailhouse lawyer in contempt because they were like strictly against that sort of thing there. So a lot we can discuss. Just to give you a little bit of background, so we have a place to start from perhaps. The long and the short of it from a national perspective, from a federal perspective is, hi Ellie, if the prison system provides ample alternatives, jailhouse lawyers are not acceptable. That's kind of the overall national view of it according to the Supreme Court. So if there is an adequate law library, if there is legal aid on staff, if they provide an actual lawyer, then the idea of a jailhouse lawyer is like not allowed. But then we've had other people. There was this one federal judge who ruled against a jailhouse lawyer. That jailhouse lawyer went and got his degree and passed the bar later on, and then that judge backtracked and go, yeah, that guy was actually pretty good. I'm wrong. I made a bad choice there. So whole lot of angles, whole lot of things we can talk about. Who wants to start us off? Who's got thoughts? Lindsay, you're new. You're only show 2. Let's start with you. Let's put you on the spot.
All right. Well, I was surprised to find that this was actually a protected right, that this went all the way to the Supreme Court, and there is a Supreme Court case that protects the right for jailhouse lawyers to effectively practice, or at least for there not to be any punitive action on jail and prison staff for those who are trying to be jailhouse lawyers. That actually did surprise me. So the case is Johnson versus Avery, and it goes back to Tennessee, I think back in the 1960s.
69. I'm looking at it right now.
Yes. So that surprised me. And I was really like kind of struck by that. Like, you have to make sure that these folks have the ability to practice this. There can't be any prison restrictions around it. I think there definitely is a point where I see these are necessary for them to kind of have the ability to do this. You know, if you have a public defender who, once you have a conviction, they no longer can come to your aid, and you are absolutely certain you are innocent, or absolutely certain that something in your case didn't get presented that could get you a different conviction, you know, I definitely see a purpose for this function. But where I think we actually see it play out are folks that maybe are a little too emotionally tied to the case for obvious reasons, who lack the kind of aloofness to look at it objectively. And when they're shown to be wrong for any reason, tend to react emotionally. And I think that undercuts the whole thing, is we get those reactions from that prisoner who's trying to defend themselves, and that, you know, defense of themselves tends to come out a little bit more, and maybe kind of sensationally. So yeah, I think it's definitely an important practice. I can see there's benefits, but I also think it definitely has its detractions.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the Supreme Court case that you referenced in '69, it's been there's been some other cases that have kind of clarified it a little bit too,
Yes.
and it's kind of branched it off into not only just jailhouse lawyers, but also access to the court.
Yeah.
And there was also Bounds versus Smith in '77.
Yep.
Which said the Supreme Court said that you have to provide adequate law libraries or adequate assistance from trained persons in the law. And then some states have taken that ruling to say, okay, if we provide those things, then we don't have to allow for a jailhouse lawyer.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of complexity to it for sure.
Yeah, I found it really interesting. One of the I found an article from the Tennessee Bar Association about it, and it said that as recently as, I think this article was published in 2023, but as recently as 2022, the Vermont Supreme Court acknowledged that jailhouse lawyers are a well-established fixture in the legal system. So that was interesting to me. Like, some states just like, yeah, they're going to do this, and we're just going to acknowledge that it's there, while other states are clearly, you know, cracking down on it.
Yeah, I could see both sides of this argument from a judge's standpoint.
Yeah.
You know, you want the people in front of you to have access to the things they need to be able to file an appropriate brief, stuff like that. In the same respect, if you're used to practicing with pros, you know, are you really excited to have some dude in there in orange just throwing paperwork at you?
Yeah.
I could see where that would annoy a lot of people. What say
Yeah.
you, Bailey? Or
I mean-
Ashley?
Go, Ashley.
Okay. So I know it's noble. It sounds noble that prisoners are helping prisoners. That's what a jailhouse lawyer is. But I don't think this is a solution. I think this creates more problems than benefits. In my point of view. Well, first, let's remember practicing law without a license is not legal, or not supposed to be legal. I don't agree that somebody that doesn't have experience in law or has the proper schooling for law should be given advice to someone else. As an accountant, we're also like that. You have CPAs that can give advice, but you shouldn't have anybody outside that's not licensed to give advice to other people. So as part of a similar profession, or not a similar profession, but a profession that looks upon licensing, I don't agree with that. Also, I don't know about their quality of work. I don't know if their quality is good or bad. I want to tend to say it's bad because they have the least experience. And also, I think that quality can slow down the court system too, because they could file something wrong. How many times do we see judges say to the defense, like, you filed this incorrectly? So I feel like that would happen a lot more if a jailhouse lawyer did it too. And then it's not all about charity either. They still get paid, the jailhouse lawyer, but I don't know. They
Interesting.
can pay each other with money, commissary, or favors. Um, and I feel like it's kind of, it feels exploitative because you never know what that jailhouse lawyer will tell you to do. And you don't want them to tell you bad advice and then it ruins your case. So I'm really concerned about that aspect as well.
All for some extra ramen.
Yeah, exactly, Bailey. It's just, it feels very exploitative to me. And
Yeah.
I don't think someone with not a license should be telling somebody what to do. And like I said, it can ruin your whole case if they not on top of their stuff, and you are past the deadline on something. That can really break your case. And I feel like relying on someone that doesn't have a law degree can really it really mess it up for you, and it might impact your freedom. So it is important that we talk about this because it's your freedom you're talking about. This is your rights. So yeah, that's what I
You led
think.
me-
Those are
you-
very interesting points.
You led me right
Yeah.
into kind of my talking points. Thank you, Ashley, for setting
Yeah,
me
no
up.
problem, Bailey.
But yes, nobody here is giving legal advice, but if I certainly wouldn't be taking the advice of a jailhouse lawyer for all the reasons aforementioned. Hire a lawyer. That's what these guys went to law school for 3 years. You know, they, like Ashley was saying, there's a certification process. That's what they call passing the bar. You got to go to the state and pass a test that's issued, I think, once or twice a year at most, and you got to pay money and you got to really crunch hard. And it's and then, you know, now you got to go out and practice. So, you know, these people have experience in obviously the legal enterprise, but also the human element of what they do. They take care of their clients, they defend them, right? They have a responsibility and a duty bound by ethics. So what Ashley was touching on, you know, it is kind of exploitative that, you know, you can kind of be like, yeah, do this, and you know, your lives are in your hand. That's what attorneys are trained for. They also have to occupy the human element enterprise as well. Also, the evolving law itself. Legislatures write these laws, so attorneys have to keep up with that. You know, just because you pass the bar, you're like, okay, I'm done. You know, so you want to hire somebody who is experienced. So don't be, you know, which judge was it? Was like, you know, when the guy would try to go pro se, he'd be like, "Would you do surgery on yourself?" Was
Yeah.
That
that
might
Judge
have been
Fleischer?
Fleischer. That might
Yeah,
have been
like would
Fleischer.
you?
That sounds like a plagiarism.
Yeah, so, you know, just get a lawyer to help you navigate these really difficult, again, not giving legal advice, but I would get a lawyer to help navigate me through these really difficult waters. And that's what attorneys are trained to do. Which got me thinking, you know, a jailhouse lawyer, the only thing in my mind that they actually bring to the table to somebody, and perhaps that's part of the lure that maybe Ashley was kind of touching on about the exploitation, is these people, I'm imagining, are experienced in the system of the judicial system, not the law, obviously, but they have experience in the system, and they're like, hey, yeah, so and so did this and they got screwed, and they did, you don't want to do that, you want to do X, Y, and Z. And, you know, and people who are scared and new to the system, they may be pulled into that person who seems to be this expert lawyer, which had me asking. And before I kind of pose this, I think I would be a great jailhouse lawyer. Like, imagine I was in prison for 10 years and I
All right,
had
here we go.
access. If I had access to, I would want the job of like maintaining the law library. Like, that would be me all day. So I'm going to pose it in the chat. What do you think would get Bailey in prison for 10 years? And I have to serve all 10. So put your answers in the chat. But I think I would be a bomb-ass jailhouse lawyer. Don't you think? Would you guys take my advice? So, colleagues?
Uh,
I would hear you out.
Do you-
that's a very nice way to put it.
I would want to see where this is going.
Yeah.
No offense, Bailey, but no.
That was a...
do you want me to be do you want me to be honest, Bailey, or do you want me to just tell you what you want to hear? I mean, which answer would you like?
We are sidebar, sir, so this is sort of off the record, so I can take it.
Off the
Absolutely.
record in front of the entire world. Okay.
Only the...
I would
yeah,
pay
that's right.
Bailey per swear word, says Bo.
I would say, yeah, I would say absolutely not, Bailey. Absolutely not.
Proper said a prayer.
I would be. Now, that said, I definitely want to hear what you have to say. Yeah. I'm sure it would be very interesting. But I don't know from a legal standpoint. Now, what would get you in trouble for 10 years, Bailey? I don't know.
I'm not sure I want to explore that topic.
I
here
don't
on this
think I
channel.
do either.
I wouldn't take,
Nope. I was
to
just thinking about it, and
I wouldn't
I
take anybody's advice, Bailey. Sorry, but since I'm against jailhouse lawyers, I don't think I should listen to one.
Now...
That's
I'm
where I
go-
said I would hear him out. And then I would
Yeah.
go to my attorney, like, hey, the weirdo 4 cells down suggested this. What do you
we
Your
think?
attorney's going to say, no, don't listen to him.
Oh, that Bailey guy again.
So I'm going to pass the ball over to Mike, but I actually have a pretty cool story after this relating to all of this. But Mike, I guess it's your turn.
Wow, what a setup. I don't mighty big shoes to
Was that
fill
me?
into that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bailey.
Pick up that ball and run
You're
with
the
it.
radio
Yeah.
guy. You know how to do this. You do
Well,
this
let me just I think being a jailhouse lawyer, I can't remember either if it was Judge Boyd. We watched so many different judges, but I think Judge Boyd said something like, you're going to listen to all these other people that are knuckleheads themselves, that have gotten themselves into trouble, and now you're going to take their advice as to what you should do with your life when, they're just as screwed up as you are. And I realize that they're studying law, but now it's not to say that that in terms of if you're in jail or you're in prison and you study the law and you pass the bar exam and you're a lawyer, I mean, I guess you're no different than anyone on the outside, I suppose. And in many states, they've upheld that idea. So I think that's a little bit different than just your run-of-the-mill guy that has access to the law library and read a couple of case laws and said, yeah, this is how you should do it because I read this. So I'm all right with it, I suppose, but I definitely have a mixed bag of opinions on it. That's for sure.
So before we get back to Bailey's story, there's actually an interesting comment in the chat from Ace about how some of these jailhouse lawyers have been successful in bringing about prison reform. So I think there is not necessarily an argument for them, but definitely where we've seen the benefit of these folks being able to practice, as it were. So that's a great point, Ace. Just want to make sure that got called out.
Yeah, there's been also successful people who, or rather people who've had success. I wouldn't call them successful people because they're in jail, but people who have had success representing themselves. I don't know if you would count that as a quote unquote jailhouse lawyer or not, but one case back from the late 50s, early 60s that has always stuck with me is Carol Chessman, which I don't know if you guys know the name or not, but he was accused of being the red light bandit in California where...
Oh, my goodness.
Oh.
Yes, I remember. Okay.
Yeah.
I was
The
wondering, I had
cops-
heard the name before years ago.
Yeah, the cops back then used red lights, and he allegedly had a red light on his car he would use to pull people over, and then he was accused of robbing and then having his way with the woman in the car. But he defended himself for doggone near a decade against the death penalty. He had a little bit of help on and off from this one female attorney. I forget her name, but he did most of the work himself and was successful right up until the very end when he wasn't. But so there can be some successes, as Ace points out, for sure. And all these people have on their hands is time.
Right.
So
Right.
time to do a lot of learning and a lot of research, and
That's the other thing. Judge Boyd, she does say stuff like that when she sends people to prison. She said, listen, you can study, you can get a college degree, you could even become a lawyer. She kind of smirks when she says it, but it is true. You can, much to the chagrin of some of the lawyers that are standing there in her courtroom. So I'm not completely against the idea, especially representing yourself. I mean, at that point, you're already in prison. What have you got to lose? Normally, I'm against pro se, but I mean, you can't go any lower, I suppose. So
I think you'd
why
definitely
not?
be safer learning stuff yourself than
Than
relying
relying on other
on
people.
somebody else. Because as Ashley has pointed out, what is their true motive? I mean,
Right.
we have to assume that at least a small percentage of the prison population is not exactly as pure as the wind-driven snow. They're going to have their agendas. They're going to have their things that they want, and how much manipulation does happen.
Right.
That's a
And I
very
think
good point.
I think it might be masking a bigger issue, Dan, and that's something I was thinking about too, is it because something is broken in the court system is why we have jailhouse lawyers? Because we know how booked public defenders are. So is there just not enough public defenders to go around? Probably not. And should we just fix the system, and then that way it will prevent these kind of cases? But
Well, this just brought up something in my mind, as we go back and forth here. So much of the jailhouse lawyers, the prison lawyers, they're working on appeals stuff.
yeah.
So, and it's never the first appeal, because that first appeal, you're going to get a court appointed if you can't afford one. But then after that, you're kind of on your own. So is the real answer to this problem perhaps appeals reform? Should people not have 27 shots at the court? And maybe just a couple?
Maybe that's another topic for
That's
another sidebar.
Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah,
not saying we
that's next
answer it right
week's
this
episode.
I'd
But-
write that
yeah.
one down.
But I think that's a great question, Dan. I
It
think
is.
that's a great question, because different states have different types of appeals, appellate courts, and rules for all of that. And man, you could really get into a rabbit hole on that. But that's a fascinating topic.
Yeah, I'm not saying we tackle it now for sure, but it comes to mind. I mean,
It
is
does.
that,
It does.
does the jailhouse lawyer create even a bigger problem from that standpoint, because they're just trying to shove in every little appeal they can get with every little loophole, and the way the system is now, it'll allow it most times to at least be heard initially.
Right.
Now, at that point, they might reject it and go, no, there's no case here, but you're still taking up court time and everything else. And
Yeah, the meritless petitions that
Yeah.
come in as well, and that's why I was saying it wastes it clogs the system even more. Getting all these petitions in and everything.
Yeah.
So that does make sense, Dan, about appeals reform. But we'll have to revisit that topic.
I think
I got-
so.
That kind of leads into actually my story about a jailhouse lawyer. I saw this on YouTube maybe 6 months ago, but it was like a rewind of something that happened maybe aired in the 90s. Maybe it was on 60 Minutes or something. And this guy, his name, Sean Hopwood, he was young and stupid and was robbing a bunch of banks, got busted, thrown in federal prison, and worked in the law library, and was a jailhouse lawyer essentially, informally. And speaking of appeals, he successfully wrote two writ of certiorari, or writ, to the Supreme Court, meaning the Supreme Court being a discretionary court, meaning they don't take cases. Like, if you ever hear somebody out there saying, I'll take this all the way to the Supreme Court, they're an idiot. Don't talk to them anymore. The Supreme Court has to accept your case. Well, he, from behind bars, successfully got the Supreme Court to accept his writs. The first one he sent was typed out on a typewriter, and it has to be written in a certain way, and the formatting and everything. And it got up there, and I have some statistics for you. The Supreme Court accepts receives 7,000 to 8,000 petitions for cert, and they only accept like less than 1%. They'll accept about 80 to 150. Lately, they've been the mean has been going up, Ashley, to about like 135. That kind of worries me, but that's a completely different topic. But this dude got 2 of them. Lawyers are lucky if they get 1. And this guy got 2. And on the first case,
Wow.
I forget what the case was, but 9-0 overturned, whatever the case was, whatever it was, or maybe he got another trial. I forget what it was, but he was successful. Long story short, I'm skipping a bunch of stuff. He comes out, he has a job waiting for him. He gets his degree. He's a law professor. And I was all excited about telling this story. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's going to be my little hook and angle for this show. And then I noticed in the news when I looked him up about 2 months ago, he was putting hands on his wife. And I think he's in jail right now, awaiting trial or something.
So Bailey,
He
what
messed
was the name of that person?
S-H-O-N is the first name. Sean, I
Okay.
guess.
Sean.
And then Hopwood. H-O-P Wood.
So it doesn't directly tie to anything that we're talking about at the moment, but I wanted to show it anyways real quick because right there on screen, that is the handwritten petition to the Supreme Court for the Gideon versus Wainwright case.
Oh.
Wow.
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 They actually took a handwritten petition on that one.
Yeah.
So,
And it has to be a certain format, and look at it.
And
He
it
did all
was.
that-
It's not like a
yeah.
postcard, but
that's
from court.
how he did it, yeah.
Like, professional lawyers screw this up all the time, and they
Yeah.
have like a deadline, and they, like, this dude from behind bars, nailed it. So here's a rare one example of like this dude who like totally turned his life around and fell in love with law and put his time to good use. So that's why I said I would try to nerd out that way. Like, if I could actually, that would be my role. So at least Bubba and Jose don't beat me up. They'd be like, hey, don't mess with my my lawyer guy. He helped Tehran get out of that thing and Torres to get out of that thing. So I'd be cool with all the gangs, and no one would mess with me, and I would just be the nerdy white guy because I don't want to get beat up.
but see, Bailey, you have that type of character though.
Yeah.
I
That's
don't
right.
know. I don't know about.
I'm too pretty for prison.
I don't know about other people though. I feel like people get taken advantage of, and that's what I worry about.
And then to that same point, what happens if, you are that person who kind of becomes known for that, and then maybe you can't fix something for somebody? Does that
Right.
then turn back on you?
I guess I would be ethical, but then I start to think
Right.
about it. I'd be like, nah.
Like,
I
do you
need
get
extra
beaten
ramen.
up or something?
I
No, I'm
want
not saying
Snickers.
your path, but like you could do everything, that you viewed that you needed to do for, your fellow inmate. But if they don't get the result they're looking for,
Hey, no.
What are the
I would
ramifications?
yeah, exactly.
What
Get
I'm
him beaten
saying
up.
is, what I'm saying is, I would
Among
Hey,
other
that.
things.
I would give them advice and then
Yeah.
go to a lawyer. Or they would come back
Yeah.
to me and be like, my lawyer's doing this, or my public defender's saying this. And then if something made me turn my head, like, wait, whoa, what? That's what they said? What are you charged
Yeah.
with? What's going on here? Like, that's my counsel. That's what I would be comfortable doing. Now, what you do with that information, that's on you. I'm not saying I'm take everything, but that's how I would be assisting, is like, or I just totally pull a racket and then I have them give me Snicker bars and all that, and then I pay everybody in the prison with those for protection, and then I just keep that racket going, and then I'll do my
The
10
amount
years
of
and get
detail
out.
you have mapped out on this is a little alarming, Bailey.
I was
And
just
oddly
about to say
specific.
this has been thought out.
And you know
Yeah.
what's
But
scary
do you
is
want that person
Right down to the names, Bubba and Jose, and man,
Torres. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what was thought about at 12:49 a.m. the other night.
what if I'm in prison? I'll tell you this right now, boy.
He's like, all right, I've engaged in this behavior. Now it could lead to this. So
Bo says Bailey's 15-year plan. We will see. Hopefully not.
Dear diary.
oh, good heavens. Well,
What scares me is that I actually came up with that on the fly. That's
Yeah.
how
You know,
See, that's
Bailey.
Bailey's head.
you got
Bailey's.
a little preview of
Bailey is this show would not be the same without Bailey. I can tell you. We wouldn't have all of these odd right turns and these sidebars, these tangents, if you will.
we all bring our elements. It wouldn't work if one of us was out or something. You know what I mean? Like it just would be the universe would turn upside down. So
Bailey is the
Bailey
chaos
can be
grenade
like-
in the group.
I was gonna say he's like antimatter.
Yes.
also known as dark matter. Okay.
No,
Maybe.
they're very different, Bailey.
Are they?
Right there.
They are. Yes.
I'll have to brush up on my Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Don't
Remember,
ask
look
me.
up.
This is not my area.
And now let's talk physics.
My bad. You guys distracted me.
I'm more Kim.
Bailey's a very eclectic person. Lots of different interests.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right, so to get
Bo
this back
says better
on track,
than that autoerotica chat. from the other day.
stop it.
Bo.
Stop it.
I was
Stop it.
wondering if someone was going to say it. I wasn't.
Well, your mate
15-yard penalty.
First down.
Red card.
Oh Lord.
should. Okay. Continue.
I don't even know what I was gonna say now.
Barb says I have to put myself on house arrest. Like she doesn't even want me
Maybe.
to leave the house. Apparently, I'm dangerous.
House arrest lawyers. Well, there you go.
How
No,
would
I-
that work?
That's a great. I've got a roommate that's also on house arrest. I don't know. I have to say, in all of this.
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead,
I have
Dan.
to interrupt because
go
this
ahead.
makes sense.
Yes.
In jail you have cellies, but now I understand the term homie. It's just two people on house arrest.
That's
I
good.
get it now.
That's good.
That is
The old man finally understands.
Nice.
Dan, you win.
All right. Anyways,
I
back
think
to you, Michael. Sorry.
Yeah, it does stand for homeboy. So cool.
I have to say though, I still the concept of a jailhouse lawyer. The more that we've talked about it, the more I just see it as a net negative.
I do too, Michael.
I think I've sort of been talked into, and again, I'm not saying that we outlawed and that we banned it in the country and all that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if for whatever reason, because Dan talks about it, we're always just a bad decision or two away or a bad day or two away from finding ourselves in a spot where we might need an attorney or where we might be in jail, and God forbid that should happen to anybody. And I can tell you, I don't think I would want to turn to somebody else that is there, no matter what, because, most everybody that's in prison will tell you that they are unfairly incarcerated and whatever. And I don't know if I want to rely on somebody that, is there
it's
for
wearing the
whatever
same
reason.
color as you.
Right. Because I think I would rather pro se it at that point if I didn't get a court appointed attorney or if I for whatever reason.
Right.
I'd probably rather pro se it. Now, is that considered a jailhouse lawyer if you pro se? Well, I don't know, because it's a constitutionally protected thing that you do have the right to represent yourself and all of that. But yeah, I think now that we've kind of analyzed this a little bit more, I don't think the pros outweigh the cons on this one.
Well,
Okay.
and an interesting point was raised earlier too, is like, how do we fix things further upstream to where people don't feel that they have to start doing this at that stage of the process? Like, what can we do to improve the quantity and perhaps maybe even the quality of our, court-appointed attorneys, or make that more enticing for the person to pursue that particular career, so that maybe we don't have wrongful convictions, maybe we don't have missing pieces in case where, like, you actually got put away for this, but really it should have been this, which is a lesser charge. And I'm very carefully not using the terms. Is there a problem we can fix upstream so that we don't have to have this particular subset of the legal channels? And I think absolutely, but I don't have the ideas on how to do it.
I think the real solution, to answer you, Lindsay, would be investing in proper defense lawyers and legitimate legal assistance programs. That's the only thing I can think of to fix the issue. But that's easier said than done, though. Because
there are some things. Innocence Project, for example.
Yeah, there's lots of people doing really great work out there to kind of help out, but
we just need more lawyers.
Well, there's not a shortage of lawyers.
Do we?
Right.
We need more defense attorneys. We need more defense attorneys.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, you know what we need, and Dan has mentioned this before. I've mentioned this before here on the pre-show, just in our private chat. All this, all throughout, and I think most of us can come to an agreement. I think one thing we'd need, and again, this is another sidebar topic, but I think was probably fewer laws. Like a lot fewer. Because maybe part of the problem is, again, I always bring this up because it's relevant here. The United States is about almost 4% of the world's population and has 25% of its prison population. We are a very law-heavy society. There are a lot of people that are in prison for reasons that, frankly, maybe they shouldn't be. Or maybe it shouldn't have come to that in the first place, or maybe there should have been other ways to mitigate, or what have you. So part of the problem that we have is that defense attorneys are overworked because we have a voluminous amount of laws in this country, and there's only so many attorneys and court-appointed attorneys and people that are on then they have a wheel, and only so many that are for misdemeanors, and only so many for certain kinds of felonies. And so that's another problem. And how great of a representation can you possibly get when you've got an attorney that's juggling 97 clients? We see this in other aspects of government as well, social workers and caseworkers, for DCS or CPS or whatever. I mean, you have people that are, overworked, in those cases underpaid. How great of a representation do you think you're going to get? Yeah, they can zealously represent you, ish, but how are you going to get the same level of representation that you're going to get from some private attorney?
Probably not.
Well, yes and no, perhaps. Judge Middleton argues that in his view, you do well with a public defender because they see more defense cases than anybody else. So he argues that they have more experience, more time in court.
Right.
Because he argues that the paid attorneys will do everything they can to just plea it out.
Get your money. Right.
So there's that standpoint. But to go back to what you were saying about too many laws, absolutely too many laws. These books are thicker than the Bible with even thinner pages. Speaking of the Bible, I know I have my biases in this matter, but I could make an argument for boiling all of our laws down to 10 simple ones.
Well, most of them do kind of come
fall
from
under
that.
those 10.
The basic tenets of our society are basically, hey, don't kill people, don't steal stuff.
Don't take John's wife.
Right. Don't covet, all that. That's pretty much, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, don't kill, that kind of stuff.
Which is kind of a roundabout almost way of, kind of getting to, could we have better community support in places for people, i.e. a house of worship, a religious community, other groups where like maybe people aren't necessarily getting into these situations in the first place. That's
That
looking
might-
even further upstream.
That may be a future sidebar
Which
topic,
I get
actually.
exactly.
Yeah.
I know I'm
Wow.
taking
I'll write down.
If you've hung around with me for any time, you know that I've argued the fact that we start fixing our world and our society at the family level,
Yeah.
right.
building better families and building
from the
better
inside out,
Yes.
and then all politics is local and, kind of expanding out from there. And if you change things here, it's a lot easier to start changing them out here than a little further out. Because if you try to do from the top down, that is that's a fool's errand, I think.
Yeah. You don't need a jailhouse lawyer if you're not ending up in a situation where you could be incarcerated in the first place, and better social support.
Well, that's always, in the chat, if you watch the live show, that's always I think I probably say it a few times a week. Like, hey, if you didn't, but Judge, this is unfair because this and this. And I'm like, well, if you didn't want to really find yourself having to say that to a judge, here's an idea. Maybe don't beat your wife. Like, that's probably a great place to start. Like, if you didn't want to be in this situation, I realize you have 17 prior convictions. Maybe don't, get there in the first place. Just saying.
Yeah, well, logic.
Right.
But speaking of logic, something else that came to my mind, we're talking here about jailhouse lawyers and how if it were us, we wouldn't use one. We'd go pro se if we had to. But we're 5 people with highly functioning brains.
True.
And
There are also 5 people sitting outside of the walls of a
correct.
correctional facility.
No shade on anybody that's in
People
prison
get
right
desperate.
now. Yeah.
Yeah.
However, imagine you're convicted of a double murder, you're on death row, your IQ is 80,
Yeah.
you've never finished high school, you don't have money, you have no access to a lawyer because you burnt through your first appeal already.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
At
Well,
that
at
point,
that-
do you-
at that point,
at that
you
point,
have-
do you throw this other guy all the ramen you can in the hopes that he
Might
can
as
help
well. You have nothing else to lose. It's kind of like what I said earlier, Dan. Like, now you're down here at the bottom. You're as low as you can get. What else? You have nothing else to lose.
Yeah.
Oh man, I think you got me on that one,
It's
Dan.
born out of desperation. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, I
Oh.
think once everything is said and done and you're just trying to get out by appealing things, I mean, like you said,
I'm-
Dan, it's all said and done. You're
I
just
mean,
trying to get out. That's
It's
all.
not a pretty situation. It's not ideal for the courts. It's not the most professional practice of law by any stretch. But it just dawned on me that we're sitting here talking as fairly educated people who have a brain, who can figure things out, and to your point, Lindsay, who aren't in the system right now.
Michelle says, "I believe in you, Bailey."
I saw that. But what
Yeah.
if we were?
Yeah.
Put yourself, what if
I think I
you
would still
only
go
had
pro
like
se.
an 8th grade education?
I would be the lawyer. Maybe I would talk to my cellie and the guy down the block, but yeah, it's certainly something born out of
Desperation.
desperation in unfortunate circumstances. And thus making it, I don't want to say necessary, but something that's just gonna exist. Is it the best idea? Probably not, but if that's your option,
What if
I was
like
to say
they
it
were
might be
just
the
a
only
system-
idea.
yeah. it's
Like
the
I would
idea.
also be good. We would all be good at like helping someone draft, say, like
Yeah.
a clemency. Am I getting the words right? Where you write to the governor to see if they'll like
Yeah.
let you out. Like I would be your dude to help you draft that letter. Like
wouldn't
for that
mind
guy
that.
who might be, whatever his IQ might be.
Yeah.
And let's say I get to know this guy. I think he's a model inmate and he's done 90% of his time or something. Yeah, I would kind of help you do that, man. And like,
Yeah.
I would help you do case law studies where I would find cases that were similar to yours, where these kinds of things, where maybe they were charged a little bit less, or maybe it was granted previously, and you can cite that and make sure it's like a one-page thing, because governors don't have all day to be freaking reading, and their assistants and all that shit. So you got to keep that shit tight. But I think we could all be helpful in that kind of regard. But no, I'm not going up to court and trying to defend you and doing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Even if that was allowed. And I think you said back in the 60s it was like totally like, no, that's not happening. Right? There was a Supreme Court hearing, you said, in 66 or 67?
Let me pull it back up.
It was anyway. So that's kind of my approach if I was kind of a so-called jailhouse.
So you're talking, here's kind of the historical perspective of
Avery.
things. Like pre-1940s, prisoners were severely restricted in what they were able to do. In the 60s and 70s, you had the prisoners' rights movement, and that kind of moved along the idea of jailhouse law, having access to law libraries, the jailhouse lawyer helping out other inmates, stuff like that. And then after that, they started to put a little bit of restrictions on it, mostly on the state level, where it was a matter of a lot of states have it that if there are legitimate alternatives, that they're not going to allow anything from a jailhouse lawyer. So if there's a legal advocate available to you, if you have access to the law library yourself and you're literate, things like that, you can't use them.
Gotcha.
That's kind of the evolution. So it went from nothing to something to still something, but more restricted depending on
It
the
used to
state.
be,
Probably because
yeah,
of
you didn't even have
technology and
access
stuff.
to a library.
Right.
You know, and I'm glad that we at least let, you know, people that are in, because look, jokes aside, I mean, there are people that are in prison that shouldn't be.
Yes.
And I think you should be afforded the opportunity to be able to best still, even if you are behind bars, even if you've been convicted or you took a plea or whatever, you should still have the opportunity to be able to research, look into the law, you know, explore your case further. And who knows, you know, so certainly I think everyone can agree that, you know, prisoners having access to law and to educational opportunities is a good thing. You know, just putting people behind bars and then just shoving them in a room and saying, here you go, here's your 3 meals a day and that's it, and just enjoy your 20 years. You know, that's not doing anything for society. So it is good that there's these opportunities. I just, so I'm all for that part. The jailhouse lawyer part, I as we've got on, I don't know. You know, it's, again, if there's no, if there isn't a legal advocate, if there isn't anything else, and yeah, as was mentioned, you know, you're in prison, you have a, you know, you're barely literate, and all that. Well, then, yeah, of course, you should have maybe you should be able to turn to somebody else, but those circumstances aside, I don't know. It doesn't seem like a great idea.
So a point brought up by Austin a little while ago in the chat, he said a regular lawyer always has access to the newest laws or changes. A jailhouse lawyer will only be up to date if the law library has enough access to the latest editions of the law. So that creates yet another problem. Now, I do know that they've started to implement some computers and tablets and some limited internet access and stuff like that in a lot of these facilities. So maybe that would help with that.
Yeah, maybe.
If they had, you know, up-to-date law available electronically. But it raises a good point. You've got somebody who, you know, doesn't have the experience, doesn't have the training, and then they're working from the old playbook.
Yeah.
That could be another problem as well. But, you know, if you're
working with old information,
if you're
working
five
with bad
steps
information.
away from the chair, you know, what have you got left?
Yeah.
You throw something against a wall and hope it sticks, I suppose.
At that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I was, if you're working with old information, you're working with bad information, and that's the other thing is, unless they keep those libraries updated, because we all know how legislatures in this country, we love to make new laws. Where that's what we're always doing. So unless they keep that updated, you could be finding yourself arguing for something that has expired or that has changed or been updated, and that then you're just wasting everybody's time, and including the court's time. And well,
prisons aren't exactly known for having the latest and greatest works of literature on hand.
No.
You're kidding.
It's just
Yeah,
it's just like the latest and greatest people. They don't have the latest and greatest information either. So
There's no
it's
Rhodes Scholars.
fortunate.
Oh,
Not
I'm
many.
sure-
Not many.
as inmates, perhaps, because they get cocky and do stupid things like fraud and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
So-
people that think that they were those kind of people, like Elizabeth Holmes. There's people like that in there.
Yeah.
But we're
Right.
always going to have these knuckleheads. Like, let's say they get in there and because we deal with mostly knuckleheads in the court that we view, right? And there was some lady this morning. She was kind of hemming and hawing on whether she wanted to take this or that, and we all got the impression she was just trying to go to jail so she can get out with the conviction, so that she can go back to using drugs.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
what I
yes.
worry about
right.
is like somebody gets in who's vulnerable, who is, probably going through withdrawals, and they're like, yeah, don't take probation, yo. You don't want to do that. You don't want to go, no, because my cousin was doing it, and you're blah, 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 blah. Just take the conviction and just, you already been here, what, how many days? 18 days? Oh, man, that means you're only going to be here and then they go there and they've, no, I don't need an attorney. And they're desperate, and they just, and then the judge can't give them legal advice, and they're like, well, that is your right.
Right.
And then they have to be very careful about what they say.
Well,
would you
Bailey, that's not
for
even-
instance,
yeah,
they could do
that's
a
not even
hypo,
jailhouse lawyer at
would
that
you-
point.
Right. Would you do surgery on yourself? They give a hypothetical, so it's not
Right.
exactly giving advice. But I know it's not exactly a jailhouse lawyer, but
No, but it's
But it's
a good
something we
point
would
still.
see.
But it's
frequently.
valid though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people that do take advice from other inmates and make their own decision based off what they say.
Yeah.
Which is kind of similar, but not exactly the same.
to be very honest with you, is it too late to tell you that when I heard jailhouse lawyer, this was my interpretation of what a jailhouse lawyer was. I didn't know it was actually a real thing until I joined you guys on the show. That it was actually a real thing.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
So,
no, it is
I
a
thought this
real
was
thing.
more
It's
of an informal goofball who's been in prison. Who's
no,
been there
that's
for,
that's a whole separate topic. I think.
Yeah, and so when I was doing prep for this show, that's how I came up with this story. I was like, hey, there was actually a dude who was actually given really good advice, and he went all the way to Supreme Court successfully twice. And that's what I thought the whole show was going to be about. I didn't know this was actually a real thing. So
No, this
cool.
is
I
it is
learned
a real
something.
thing. But
I didn't
yeah.
know about it until Dan. I think it was Dan that brought up this topic. And then I'm like, wait, is that a thing? So I didn't know it was a thing either, Bailey.
No.
Yeah, it's totally a thing. It's a commodity that's traded just like everything else. That's
Right.
it's a skill that's sold when you're in the prisons, and oftentimes
good at that.
it's not even somebody who has any kind of a law background. Most of the time, it's not. It's just that they can read and understand things.
That
Yeah.
would be my gig. You'd catch me in cell number 4, Lindsay. If you need any help, I'll just give you some advice. And
Well, two things.
You can't be
First
here
off,
if you're
I'm-
in jail.
First off, if you and Lindsay are in the same prison, that's going to be weird.
Well-
Second,
we might have had a crazy Saturday. Maybe tequila was involved, and I
Fair.
don't know. And we got arrested.
you are thinking way
like a
too
Katy
much
Perry
about
song.
this, and it's really starting to
What?
concern me.
I have a
Yeah.
creative mind. I'm being playful right now, guys.
Oh,
Don't pick on me.
okay.
I'm being, hey, I'm very uptight. Anybody who's watching, like my stepmom's watching, she knows my whole life I've been incredibly uptight and a very serious person. And
Oh,
the
so-
last many, many years, I've given myself permission to just be goofy and funny and silly and, hopefully
so this
not
is just
obnoxious.
fantasizing. I get it.
This is just me being a goofball, and yes, I absolutely every time I walk away 1 minute before the show, I go and smoke, and then I sit down. So this is where the creative juices are kind of flowing.
Secret
it is
sauce.
interesting. It's just interesting how you have these details so finely crafted. Like you have painted a picture, like a Picasso-esque picture, Bailey. It is.
You guys
It's
are
pretty
impressive.
marvelous. I mean, I have to say,
he has like what's it called? Big visuals or big imagination when it comes to things. It seems
Very vivid imagination.
Vivid
I would
He
say,
can paint interesting pictures.
Yeah.
I'll grant you that.
yes.
I'd be lying
don't
if
know
I
if I've
hadn't kind of, maybe not to the same level of detail as Bailey, but when we hear frequently on the show, we're all, one bad decision, one terrible morning away from being in the position of some of these people. Your brain does kind of do that spinning. You
Yeah, it
do
does.
kind of start to put
Sure.
yourself in these positions. And
I think that's
Yeah.
why Bailey
can't
enjoys his own
sleep.
company.
I do. If anybody calls me and they're like, "Hey, how you doing? What are you up to?" and I'm like, "Oh, I'm just sitting here enjoying the company of my thoughts," which is a good place to be. Like if you can enjoy the thoughts that you're having and you're not feeling sad or you're stressed out,
Sitting
I
by the
think that's-
pool, planning my jailhouse hustle.
exactly, or preparing for Sidebar.
That's
and,
how it always begins.
And yeah, I don't know. It's a pretty fun place up here, guys. It's not,
It really is.
I believe it.
I it's good to play. It really is. I know it sounds honky and corny, but human beings and all animals, they play, and it's a healthy thing to do. And the way I play is, I nerd out, and I love that. Like when you can laugh at court and you can laugh at law and like the weird, weedy kind of stuff. I mean, that's the sign of like. That's why I love you guys' company, because you guys can. How many laughs did we have today? I can't remember what the joke was. I'm going to go back
Lost
and
count.
re-listen to it and probably laugh all over again, because we're nerds. So I appreciate you guys, your comments and your compliments, but it's well, there's no buts. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Well, per our normal arrangement, we solved nothing, but we had
That's right.
fun.
and that's the
Yeah,
important
this
part.
was a
That is the important
This was a good
part.
topic. Yes.
So, Bailey, any other final thoughts?
Well, now I'm not prepared. This is the other side of the sword of the marijuana. It's always great to be in your guys' company, Lindsay. Thank you, for being. I mean, I love this. Now this just seems to make sense to me in my brain. It's like I don't. We need all 5 of us here, I think, or something. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but yeah, great topic. You won't have to, like you guys were saying, you won't have to worry about a jailhouse attorney if you, like Lindsay was saying, you don't go down this road to begin with. And I think in a future sidebar, we're going to be discussing the elements and things that might be getting people caught up in this whole system to begin with. So that might be a really good part 2. And I'm looking forward to that discussion. It's kind of my baby. It's kind of my topic. So I'm going to be really well prepared for that one. But anyway, don't pick up any cases or you'll be featured on Sidebar, possibly.
Michael.
Well, Bailey, I will say you have Michelle's vote of confidence, and you know what? That's good enough for me. I would gladly let you represent me, Bailey. You could walk me into the fire. You could steer me right into the iceberg, Bailey. You know what? I'm fine with it. That's why we do this show. I'm very happy that. I'm very happy that we had this discussion. I think this was it was enlightening in a lot of ways, and I definitely sort of came to an opinion on it, at least a little bit. So, yeah. But maybe just don't find yourself in jail, and you won't need the jailhouse lawyer. There you go.
So true. Ashley.
I still think there's more negatives than positives to jailhouse lawyers after our conversation. But jailhouse lawyers aren't champions of justice. They are a symptom of injustice. And until we fix the system, relying on them only creates more problems, in my opinion, and more broken lives, to end on a cheery note.
All right.
That was
Lindsay?
tasty.
I agree wholeheartedly. Like, hopefully we never find ourselves in a position where we are considering this, and hopefully we find ourselves as a society in a point where we don't need this particular institution. However, if you are curious and want to read more into how to successfully be a jailhouse lawyer, if you go to jailhouselaw.org, you can find the handbook, the Jailhouse Lawyer's Handbook, and read about what you would need to do to defend yourself and how to bring a federal lawsuit to challenge violations of your rights in prison.
There you go, Bailey.
So, Bailey, there's some reading material for you.
Oh, man.
Bailey, you have your homework.
But yeah, I think this institution is a symptom of a much bigger problem, and I would love to see a point where we don't need this and we can solve things from the outside. And thank you for letting me jump in.
No, you're always welcome.
Oh, it's awesome.
Do they have that in audiobook, by the way? Because I never have time to read.
You can download the handbook and have a printed copy mailed
The
to someone in
Jailhouse
prison.
Handbook,
I'm sure we can get ChatGPT to read it to you.
page 1.
Perfect.
Or Speechify.
There you go.
All right, so real quick before I give my final thought, Barbara says Sidebar needs to be a longer show. Barbara just keeps begging me to be live like 24/7.
I need to sleep, Barbara.
We're already live 13 times a week, Barbara.
Yeah.
I got to sleep at some point, but I love your dedication to us, so thank you.
Yes, Barbara.
I think this all boils down to, for me anyways, one of the things I keep saying, and that's do the next right thing. If you do the next right thing, if you live as clean of a life as possible, then your odds of being in a situation where you have to have a jailhouse lawyer are very, very slim. But in the same respect, I get it. If you're in a situation, you're desperate, you've run out of all your other options, it totally makes sense to me how somebody will run to anybody with half of an IQ and the ability to read and understand things and just go, please help me, I'll give you all the ramen you want. And I totally get it. So, but I still think the best solution is just don't do crimes. And I think that would solve a lot of things. Plus, get rid of about 99.9% of our laws. Do that too. I think that would help. So that's where I leave it at. Guys, thanks so much for joining me tonight. This is always a hoot. You make Tuesdays and Thursdays so much better. So
This was
thank you all.
fun.
You
Happy
guys,
to be here.
same.
All right, we'll do this again Tuesday. In the meantime, everybody out there, take care. God bless.
Good night.
Good night.
Take care.